with a ghost rider. What the f happened? Oh no! I swore I wouldn't tell. But most of y'all sharing bars like you got the bottom bunk in a two-man sale. A two-man sale. Something's in the water. Something's in the water. And if I got a brown nose for some gold, then I'd rather be a bum than a mother bum. Oh yeah. Where you and I was walking. Now I run the game, got the whole world talking. King Kunta, everybody wanna cut the legs off. King Kunta, black man taking no losses. Oh yeah. Where you and I was walking. Now I run the game, got the whole world talking. King Kunta, everybody wanna cut the legs off. When you got the yams.
KBLA Talk 1580 broadcasting live from Leimert Park, Africatown, USA. That's in Los Angeles, California. And you are always invited in. You're invited in all day today at 800-920-1580. Don't forget to tap in with me on the social media things. We're at KBLA 1580 on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and more. YouTube for sure, where we're streaming right now. I'm at DiPrima Radio, DiPrima, and then radio. Find me there, and I will look forward to your conversation, your comments. Please follow, like, subscribe, talk smack. We need all of that. It keeps us healthy, vibrant, and keeps us available to do the work of getting the message out and to create a platform where you have access to the mic and you're invited in all the time. I do this show 6 to 9, Monday through Friday. That's Pacific time, followed by Tavis Smiley every single day, followed by Dr. Cornell West, Jesse Jackson Jr., D.L. Hughley. It's an incredible lineup, and we appreciate your support making this happen. Of course, Black Lives Matter Grassroots, they have their show Saturday mornings, every Saturday morning at 8, and et cetera, et cetera. Great shows from top to bottom. Welcoming into the conversation this morning, the Director of Operations and Campaigns with Students Deserve. He's also a core member of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles. His activist portfolio, if you will, is about criminal justice, education, racial and economic justice, housing, and houselessness. Joseph Williams, good morning.
Good morning, Dominique. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining this morning. We're commemorating 33 years since LA's civil unrest, however many years it's been since 1965, Watts Uprising, and then, of course, 2020, all of these traditions of protest of which LA has a huge piece of. I think it's really underestimated on the world stage and certainly in California politics, the pivotal role that LA has had in mobilizing boots on the ground, whether it be Black Lives Matter, whether it be the cops off campuses, the Black Panther Party, the prior movements against police abuse. And I'm reflecting on that today as we, look at youth activism and how we can sort of protect youth activists. But how do you see yourself in that tradition or legacy of protest? I know you're on the younger side too, so you obviously weren't marching in 1992, but still, that's the backdrop. That's the LA in which you move and work.
Yeah. Well, I was born in '92, Dominique, so I wasn't yet marching.
So you were part of the protest. You were
something like that. But yeah, for sure, we in the Black Lives Matter movement and Black Lives Matter Los Angeles and grassroots definitely see ourselves within this tradition of the Black liberation movement, which has had many tactics, but definitely at times has used protest and uprisings as a tactic, as a response, as a channel for which, folks have raised their voices, raised their demands, and put pressure on the powers that be to really hear what people are feeling. And so definitely we see ourselves as folks who have helped to raise that banner, raise those voices of our community as folks who are within that liberation mission. And we for sure see it ongoing. looking at the ongoing weekly protests by Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, the End Police Association protests. I'm looking at the people's budget work. And there's even a major action going on this week on May Day with, racial justice, immigration justice, education justice folks are getting together. And as my dear sister, Georgia Flowers Lee said, Democracy Now! This morning, taking our power back. So for sure,
boy, everybody's
really
shouting out everybody's shows. I hope y'all give us love on their shows.
all the time, Dominique.
Okay, I believe you. But look, I mean, one of the things that I think is really striking about LA activism is that understanding and commitment to the timeline. I mean, even the example of using the words of Assata Shakur to close the protest. This is going way back, right, in time, and it's recognizing the fact that this is not a one-off or a bunch of angry people, but it is a continuum, and it is part of a national and international movement.
Absolutely. It's definitely a continuum, and in many ways, we're facing some of the same forces, even if it may look differently. The weaponization of the police against protesters, the weaponization of the police against immigrant communities, against Black folks is absolutely connected, to the police beating, violent assault of Rodney King 30 years ago. These are absolutely strands of the same kind of state-sanctioned violence that folks are organizing against and protesting against. So for sure, it is definitely situated directly within that history.
And even though you point out you were you were part of the revolution of '92 and that you were being born at that time, but it seems to me that, well, I don't know. Let me pose this differently as a question, Joseph Williams. You've been protesting for a long time. You've been doing direct action for a long time within your lifespan of 30-some years. Do you feel like the repression, the pushback, the criminalization of protest is similar to how it's always been, or does it feel more threatening?
I would say that the capabilities of the state in terms of surveillance, in terms of all of the different tools and also funding that have been pumped into both, military and also police, and a bunch of that, surplus, quote unquote, surplus military, tools are then handed to police departments. I would say those things are definitely scary and unprecedented. The cop cities that have been popping up around the country, and I want to remind folks that this is under a Democratic, former president who said, fund the police, fund the police, fund the police. And now we're seeing what that looks like when, these tools are in the hands of an authoritarian dictator. And why folks have been saying, invest in alternatives, right? Invest in alternatives to community-based safety. So I would say, yeah, it is, there has always been surveillance and repression and abuse by the state. And I think the capability or the tools that the state has definitely are unprecedented. And the way in which, this administration has been using those tools in the first 100 days is certainly unprecedented in terms of, how public and open some of the police repression and kidnappings and abuse and arresting judges and all different kinds of things that seem unprecedented for sure in this time.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we'll get into it, but the way that they're being backed up by these Republicans in Congress, the current administration, the court system, the Department of Justice, it feels like there's really, I feel really protective of the university and high school students right now because the way that they're being singled out, either deported, stopped from getting jobs or opportunities, given academic punishments, or even being expelled, all for speaking their minds, which is meant to be legal for anti-war protests, for protesting for their own resources, for trying to get cops off of campuses, all of these things. When we come forward, I want to, have you share, for those not familiar, what Students Deserve does and how these student organizers are protecting themselves. What can we do to help in this fraught moment? It seems just so very unfair. I watch them and I see myself protesting apartheid, and all the sit-ins we did to try to save the School of Ethnic Studies was always in danger. I would have been deported, jailed, and probably expelled. It seems so unfair. 800-920-1580 if you want to weigh in. We're talking with Joseph Williams of Students Deserve, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to here with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
All I need is one mic.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. With so many shows on our station weekdays and weekends, it's hard for me to keep track of all the guests who are actually in studio on any given day. I wish I'd known in advance that LADA Nathan Hochman was coming in studio for a recent interview. Had I known, I would have loved to have personally greeted him and then asked him why LA City Council member Karen Price is being criminally prosecuted for allegations of misconduct similar to the conflict of interest violations for which former City Council member Kevin De Leon is only being fined. What's that about, Mr. DA? In fairness to Mr. Hochman, it was former DA George Gascon who actually filed felony charges against Councilman Price. I opined then on how these criminal charges against Price did not pass the smell test. I was concerned then that this was yet another wayward prosecution of a high-profile black elected, not to mention a waste of taxpayer money. I am even more convinced now that this is a hot mess. To be clear, neither you or I want a bunch of self-serving, greedy, conflict of interest criminals managing the people's business inside LA City Hall. But we also don't want selective or targeted prosecution of black politicians. We've seen that movie before, and we don't need a sequel. It's hard to watch Kevin De Leon get away with paying an $18,000 fine for repeated ethics violations, what he calls an oversight, and at the same time, watch the DA's office continue its criminal prosecution of Karen Price for issues allegedly involving his wife's clients. Motions, I might add, that were passed unanimously by the LA City Councilman. What are you saying, Tavis? I'm glad you asked. DA Hochman did not start this inquisition, but he certainly has the power to stop it. I have said it before, and I will say it again. Fundamental fairness. In the absence of fundamental fairness, we experience a cascade of deteriorating conditions. The erosion of trust, the weakening of social cohesion, alienation, marginalization, the legitimacy of authority diminishes, cynicism and disengagement grow, and ultimately, people abandon civic participation altogether. Fundamental fairness, Mr. Hochman, that's all we ask. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. As always, we welcome your feedback.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
I do appreciate you. Right now, you're waking up also with Joseph Williams of Students Deserve. And I'm very concerned about the attacks on young protesters, particularly those who, are black, to be honest with you, because we always seem to get the book thrown at us harder than everybody else. Talk a little bit about Students Deserve, what it is, what it does, and your work with the students. Joseph?
So
yeah.
Ooh, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you now.
Yes. So Students Deserve is a grassroots, intergenerational, but youth-led organization working to end the school-to-prison pipeline, end youth incarceration, and make Black Lives Matter in schools. And so that looks like working with young people, to support them, to develop the leadership, to be the advocates and the change makers that they and the schools and communities really need, and supporting young people to demand investments in the kind of supports that they need in schools, and divestment from the kind of stuff that is criminalizing and harming young people. And so that definitely, like I said, while our movements have many tactics, protest has definitely been one of them that young people have used and have really used to advance some really powerful victories here in LA. But yeah, as you said, have also faced criminalization and attacks that are really increasing. And so we have young people both on college campuses and on high school campuses and alumni on college campuses in LA and throughout the country now, who have been involved in organizing for Black students, who have been involved in organizing for justice in Palestine and the end to genocide in Gaza, and who have really seen and faced, along with their classmates, really severe criminalization and pushback, not only from police, but from these administrations as well. And so we're definitely seeing that escalating and really concerned about how that is going to continue to land on young people.
Yeah, we talked with Angel Marie Taylor last week, and she described her case. And I know Black Lives Matter and Students Deserve and others have been mobilizing with her to stand by her as she's being targeted. This is an African American student. It's, as you rightly point out, it's not just migrants or Middle Eastern folks. It's also Black folks. How are you advising young people? You guys have a handbook? Do you have a play by play? Like, how do you help them navigate this moment of really danger, to their futures as academic? I mean, I know we always take a risk and we always make a sacrifice when we stand up for what's right, but it seems very extreme at the moment.
It is very extreme. I think, frankly, there is no way, and there never has ever been, any foolproof way, right, to predict or prevent against state-sanctioned repression and abuse. But there are definitely practices that we can take to better protect each other and ourselves. When we're engaging in protests, we try to support young people to do that. We try to, we always have our own safety teams at protests that help prevent anything, intervene in anything, de-escalate anything, and for sure create barriers between young people and police. And so, at the same time, I think young people are feeling like, and we also want to support young people in not being, scared out of action. I think that is one of the intentions of this kind of increased police repression and abuse, is to scare people to not act, right?
Yeah.
And to make people to protest. And so young people, as we've seen with the walkouts this year, so many other things, are really saying we still want to stand up and demand justice, and we're going to do that. And so we're trying to find ways to support them to be as safe as possible as they are.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. It's like they're going to go out. They're going out anyway, but I am really, really mindful of the way that it's such a amazing coincidence that every time these unmarked cops or amateur security or freelance ICE folks, these people walking up and basically kidnapping people in broad daylight, or even the ICE things, they're on film and they always seem to go viral. I feel like that's such a coincidence that it's giving signal. It's making an example out of someone to chill your desire to protest.
Absolutely. And I think, frankly, it is terrifying seeing all these masked men, like you said, not in uniform, not announcing themselves, kidnapping folks off of the street,
Right.
and then being backed up by the biggest, most powerful country in the history of the world is definitely terrifying. But it also is exactly why we need to be standing up in this moment.
Yeah. So what can you? I guess young people, they have the advantage of that, impulsive brain, right? They don't always think things through before they go and do a thing. But are you getting any trepidation? Are you getting any hesitation? Are you getting any second thoughts? I see Tundiwe Abdullah out there at the HBCU encampment on the Howard campus, and it doesn't seem like it. But I think about the young people in my life. It doesn't seem like they're slowing up. But I can see where if you want to, think about your future job or your future ability to even get a degree, some of these institutions really are caving and taking away people's academic achievements because of who they are and what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons that what we are doing here in Los Angeles and what folks, I think, have successfully done in a couple places is really pushing these institutions to do the opposite, to not capitulate to some of these demands from the federal government, but to really stand firm and even increase what they're doing around equity, around protecting young people, around really holding firm to the values that community, frankly, has pushed, some of the public institutions in California to hold. And so I think, we have an obligation to really be supporting young people. Right now, Students and Students Deserve and our partners in the Police Free LAUSD Coalition have passed out, I think it's around 17,000 stickers and half sheets about how LAUSD must protect Black, undocumented, and LGBTQ plus students from these attacks coming from the administration and elsewhere. And so they're really demanding that the school district take action right now and not capitulate, but rather double down on things like the Black Student Achievement Plan and restorative justice and supports for queer students and dream centers for undocumented students at a time when all of those things are under attack. And so if young people are being bold in that way, we really got to support them and push our institutions to not be capitulating, but instead to be taking bold action in defiance of what we know is, authoritarianism and just wrong on so many levels.
Yeah, I feel like the fact that Harvard stood up when it seems like every institution, and they have their own reasons for doing it, I get that, but the fact it seems like every institution almost is just caving on the university level. Now, on the high school level, we've seen more pushback. The entire LAUSD and the New York City school system pushing back on the DEI restrictions and threats coming from this administration. But does it seem like the Harvard situation has changed the tone at all?
I think there's still a lot to figure out. I know that also the Big Ten announced maybe a couple weeks ago an alliance between the different universities in the Big Ten where they would essentially agree to collectively defend each other against attacks from Trump. And that, to me was pretty encouraging to see. I want to dig into it more and see, if there's been any development. But they agreed, essentially to start a collective legal fund and to support each other if one member was attacked to respond, that their own member institution was attacked. And that, the Big Ten is traditionally like an athletic alliance. It has nothing to do with even academics, really. And so to see them taking that stance, pretty soon after Harvard did as well, I think was encouraging. And I think, none of these things happen, frankly, without a push happening from below as well. These institutions are not going to feel like they have the backing to stand up to Trump if people are not making them feel like that is what we're demanding and expecting of them.
Yeah, this is a great observation. It's one of the reasons I'm bringing it up. I think we can be, as Black moms and dads, disciplinarian, act right, follow directions, don't cause trouble, but it's that good trouble. If we want to celebrate Dr. King and want to celebrate John Lewis getting busted over the head, but then we sometimes fail to step up in support of our own children. And this is a moment, folks, when they really, really need it. And I'm not just talking about college. I'm talking about high school and under. Joseph Williams is my guest. You're invited in. We've got news, traffic, and sports right now. Then more on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. Former Vice President Kamala Harris is expected to criticize Donald Trump's presidency in a speech in San Francisco on Wednesday. Speaking at Emerge, an organization that promotes Democratic women in office, Harris will target Trump's economic policies and his influence on American institutions. The process of selecting a new pope will begin May 7th. That's when what's called a conclave begins. Members of the College of Cardinals under age 80 are allowed to vote, and the winner must be selected by a 2/3 majority. The House of Representatives is taking a stand against deepfake and revenge pornography. Lawmakers on Monday overwhelmingly approved the Take It Down Act, which provides protections for victims of non-consensual sexual image sharing and AI-generated pornography. And Usher's concert film, Usher Rendezvous in Paris, will stream exclusively on BET Plus starting May 8th. The film features his Paris performances. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
If you're ready for a new job, let Express Employment Professionals help you. Express is already hiring for summer jobs in a variety of industries. Job seekers never pay a fee at Express. Go to expresspros.com to find your location. That's expresspros.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Critical game for the Clippers tonight in Denver. It's Game 5 of their first-round series against the Nuggets. The series is tied at 2 games apiece in the best of 7. Clippers coach Ty Lue needs to come up with something in his game plan to deal with Nuggets center Nikola Jokic. In the 4 games, Jokic is averaging a triple-double, 28.5 points, 13.5 rebounds, and 10.8 assists. The Clippers have no players on their injury list, which means Kawhi Leonard is healthy. The Clippers will not get past the Nuggets without Leonard. Leonard has been brilliant in the series, averaging 26 points and shooting 56%. 7 p.m. tip-off tonight on TNT. Shaquille O'Neal has agreed to become the general manager at Sacramento State University. Shaq will help run the school's men's basketball program. Shaq's son, Shakir, transferred to Sac State from HBCU, Florida A&M. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
At Providence, health equity is the foundation of our community health initiatives, ensuring care reaches those who need it most. Heart disease is the leading cause of death in America. African Americans face a higher risk of life-threatening issues like hypertension, the #1 cause of stroke. 55% of Black adults have high blood pressure. The good news is 80% of heart disease is preventable with healthy lifestyle changes and patient-centered care provided by the Providence Heart and Vascular Institute. From routine screenings to advanced procedures, Providence provides comprehensive care for the heart conditions that overly impact our community by ensuring patients receive treatments tailored to their needs. Let's stop the trend of being 30% more likely to die from heart-related problems. Take charge of your heart health with world-class cardiologists who deliver the compassionate care you deserve. Visit providence.org/SoCalHeart. That's providence.org/SoCalHeart to request an appointment.
40 acres in the mule. This is bigger than the music. Yeah, they tried to rig the game, but you can't fake influence.
Who among us doesn't like black music? But Kendrick is right. This moment is so much bigger than music. These are serious times. We've got serious problems, and we need serious people who understand that slogans are not solutions. When you want substantial and sober analysis about things that matter to you and the ones you love, this is where you turn. We're KBLA Talk 1580. and we've got your black.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called SelectQuote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40 and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-729-7070. That's 1-800-729-7070. Or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. That's 1-800-729-7070. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
KBLA Talk 1580 and the California Black Chamber of Commerce invite you to the Small Business Development Workshop, How to Do Business with California Government, on Thursday, May 15th at Victory Park in Pasadena, 2575 Paloma Street. Get certified and register as a new bidder. Sell products and services to the state. Learn about pre-bid events and more. And it's all free. All you have to do is sign up at www.calbcc.org. That's www.calbcc.org. Registration for the Small Business Development Workshop, How to Do Business with California Government, begins at 9 a.m. and the workshop concludes at 1 p.m. on Thursday, May 15th at Victory Park in Pasadena, 2575 Paloma Street. This is a community call to action from the California Black Chamber of Commerce and KBLA Talk 1580. Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio, KBLA Talk 1580.
And we're talking with Joseph Williams of LA Students Deserve, talking about what's going on with student protesters all across the nation. It's crazy, too, because it seems like, it's worse here than in other countries right now. That doesn't sound good, but usually I'm more worried about student protesters in, China, Russia, I don't know, Poland. It seems worse here right now.
Oh, man. Yeah, I haven't been around in any of those places, but it definitely does feel much scarier in a lot of ways than it has. And, even kidnappings, public kidnappings that we're talking about, government committing against folks who have essentially done nothing more than engage in protest is absolutely like, yo, what country is this? What authoritarian regime is running our country that this is happening on the street? It's for sure scary and reminiscent of, a lot of different authoritarian responses to protests in other places.
And we were talking about these, what I think is the intentional viral videos that, someone just happened to be filming right when these unmarked cops walked up. Wow, there's several angles. I know that happens with protests, but it just feels very intentional. So the question is, how are you and how are you helping the young people, younger people, deal with fear? Because I get so many people calling here and then folks off the air saying, I'm just going to keep my head down, or it's too scary right now, or, there's nothing we can do, or what can we do? That I keep saying, well, I think that we win this battle. Hard, long, however it plays out, we're 100 days into this administration, we're, a couple hundred years in to some of these struggles. How do you keep from kind of falling for that intentional fear that's being put out there for us to fall for?
Yeah, I think fear and apathy, as an organizer and who has been really blessed and lucky to learn from some really seasoned organizers, Baba Akili, Dr. Melina Abdullah, Jan Williams, other folks in the Black Lives Matter Los Angeles and grassroots networks and beyond. Fear and apathy are always things that we are having to face. We're trying to organize people from inaction into taking action. And so it's really important as an organizer to be able to articulate hope in the face of fear, articulate the possibility for victory in the face of what looks like, we've already suffered such massive defeats, and there is no hope, right? And so, yeah, this is a moment where we as organizers, we as folks who believe in and desire a better future for our people, the liberation of our folks, freedom and joy and love for our babies, like we've got to redouble our own hope and belief in a better future so that we can inspire that in other people. Because truly, it takes, hope and courage and belief and imagination to see all of the pain and trauma that we exist in and to believe we can fight for it and we can win something better for our folks. So that is what I'm leaning into right now. So even folks are finding inspiration from things like Sinners, this creative expression about Black people thriving and doing different things and, vampires and other stuff too. But again, finding ways that we can, be inspired and hold on to that hope and that belief is really important right now.
Yeah. Do you ever find yourself kind of going, what, can I handle this moment, or what happens if I get kidnapped, or do you just push forward and don't worry about it?
Oh man. Yes, I think in some ways, and I think there's a number of things that, we can try to do to prepare ourselves or our families or loved ones for certain things. And to have protocols and go bags and processes and those kind of things. But, I'm also of the belief that we can never fully, predict or prevent certain things. And I can't let that uncertainty stop me. I think I feel really blessed and privileged in so many ways. And that comes with a responsibility, I think, to continue to struggle for my people, despite what, the conditions or times may be. But there's definitely always like, man, do I know what I'm doing? Am I prepared for these things? Am I prepared for this moment? And that's, again, when I try to lean on, my elders in movement, when I try to lean on community, when I try to lean on, the experiences that I've had that have helped me get to this moment and that our people have had that have helped us overcome some crazy stuff and still be here.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I know that sounds corny, but I also lean on God because I think about, Harriet Tubman, and I think about the Haitian Revolution and how those folks called on God. They leaned on God and allowed them to overcome ridiculous odds and prevail. And I guess I'm bringing it up because I feel like fear is getting a strong root right now among some of our people, and I don't want to see that, because I know that fearful people make bad decisions and can be more easily controlled.
Yeah, well, first I'll say it's not corny at all to lean on God. I think it's deeply important. I was raised in a very religious household, and still to this day pray for guidance, especially in these times right now. So I definitely don't think that's corny. And I think you already named how many of our historical and contemporary freedom fighters have also been deeply religious people, from Dr. King to, even, Nat Turner was a preacher. So many of our folks who led freedom movements for our people felt deeply inspired by and called by and guided by a higher power. I think that's really important. And similarly, for so many of our folks today, we know that, Dr. Melina Abdullah is a Black Muslim woman. And also many of our youth leaders, Sierra Leone Anderson, who you and I both love, is a Black Muslim, young woman who is deeply passionate about her faith, but also about liberation for her people.
Yeah. So many great comments going on in the YouTube chat. And Tony, Sister CEO, says the problem is the young people aren't living in fear. It's the old heads who are. I think that may be true. I even look at my own child, and sometimes the things the younger generation says and does, it just makes my hair stand on end, because I know, I grew up with parents who were targets of the COINTELPRO, initiative. And I've seen it on the other end of the spectrum, and they're just like, yes, we're running into this burning building, and we're going to end this genocide. And they seem to be somewhat, not somewhat, they seem to be all in, just very fearless, and sometimes I do worry for their safety. Absolutely.
I mean, I deeply love the young people that I work with, and I'm always concerned about their safety. And as we know, like, even young people who are not protesting right now are under attack. They're deporting, 2-year-olds, 4-year-olds on, intensive medical care, 11 and 7-year-old U.S. citizen children. Our kids that have been under attack. There are, even here in Los Angeles, the probation department, which handles youth incarceration, recently settled a $4 billion child abuse settlement for abusing kids in their care for decades and decades. Unfortunately, horrific stuff is happening, has been happening, and frankly, the only way that we can stand up and change any of this horrific stuff, rather, is by standing up. Yeah. Frederick Douglass said, power conceives nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. So we got to continue to raise those demands.
Yeah. Well, when we come forward, I want to talk a little bit specific, although this is, we're talking in the context of student protests, youth protests, particularly high school, where they have, I think, even fewer rights. But I also want to look at the Black Student Achievement Program, where we are with that right now, and how folks can help if we can. That's next. We're talking with Joseph Williams and you on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward. When the flames subside, who ensures that the stories endure? At KBLA Talk 1580, we're committed to preserving the voices that shape our community. We know people have short memories, and as long as this Black Talk radio station is on the air, we will not let Altadena be forgotten. We are honored to announce that the Altadena Historical Society will officially archive our recent town hall, alongside every episode of Conversation Live, Altadena Rising with James Farr. This is the show of record, the definitive source for tracking Altadena's roots, resilience, recovery, and reunion. These stories will now live on for students, scholars, researchers, and journalists seeking truth and legacy in the months and years to come. Because history isn't just made, it's honored, it's recorded, and it's passed forward. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
I feel so alone.
I'm embarrassed to talk about it.
How can I help my kid if I can't help myself?
I can't remember when I wasn't stressed. I don't like
it inside.
When you feel overwhelmed by your thoughts and emotions, it's okay to get help. You are not alone. CalHope is here for you with free, safe, and confidential mental health resources for youth, young adults, families, and you. Find support now at calhope.org.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least liked to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
Continues right now with Joseph Williams, who is working with LA Students Deserve. Students Deserve, the organization, has teamed up with other orgs to create the Black Student Achievement Program after taking funding away from school police. That was a huge victory. That was you and a lot of the students organizing, showing up and doing the work. That money was repurposed. It's really what we talk about when we talk about defunding police or Care First, taking that money to help close the achievement gap, to repair it. And it's been in jeopardy because of a threat from somebody where I don't even remember where, somebody out of town saying, we're going to sue you. This should be for all students. Where are we now? Where is it now with BSAP?
Yeah, so first I'll say that really what BSAP seeks to address is not the achievement gap necessarily, but the investment gap. There has been a gap in the way in which schools that serve Black students and Black students themselves have been underinvested in intentionally for decades and decades, right? And so the Black Student Achievement Plan exists in order to redress those history of anti-Black harms and policies. And that's important to name because that is literally what makes it legal, right? It is not just a program that's like trying to favorably treat Black students. It exists in order to redress decades of anti-Black policies and harm that LAUSD has enacted against Black students. And so where we're at right now is, as you said, an organization from Virginia, filed this complaint. LAUSD essentially capitulated, right, and said, okay, we'll take the Black out of BSAP. Instead of fighting and naming, hey, this is why this is legally defensible, because there's this history of anti-Black policies that we are trying to address with these resources and with this program. Instead of doing that, they say, cool, we'll just open it up, remove race as a factor for targeting those resources. So there's been a number of developments since then. We've been able at least to protect some of the funding going to these programs and some of the schools that this funding is going to, so that it's not just spread throughout the district, in a district that's only 8% Black. But there's definitely still a fight ahead to continue to protect BSAP and the targeting of resources towards Black students and towards upending, these decades of anti-Black policies, as well as to continue to expand it. Because even with as transformative as BSAP has been and with the resources and impact, or the impact that we've seen these resources had on young people, we know that, 3, 4, 5 years of a Black Student Achievement Plan does not upend 50, 60, 70 or more years of educational racism and institutional racism in the education system. And so we're still engaged in that fight. We're asking folks to join us at the next school board meeting on May 13th at 3 p.m. at 333 South Beaudry to help us continue to fight to protect and expand BSAP and also push the district to expand resources and supports for other targeted student populations right now.
Yeah, it's a really good point, underinvestment versus a gap. Why is there a gap? Because of underinvestment. Oh, and, enslavement, Jim Crow, et cetera, et cetera. But when we're in this chapter of anti-DEI rabidness and anti-affirmative action and anything that seems targeted towards helping our students, that's why I was happy to see the statement that you pointed out earlier by the teachers union and others talking about protecting Black and migrant students, because usually we only hear about, sanctuary schools. That's what I've heard out of Carvalho. I heard him rushing to say he was going to defend migrant students, but not defending BSAP at all, and throwing Black children under the bus. And I have a problem with that.
Absolutely. And we know that, we can't separate the entity of ICE and immigration enforcement from law enforcement. It is law enforcement. So to say we're going to stop ICE but allow school police on campus and spend $70-80 million on a school police department, literally, those things don't make sense. And we know that immigrant students, including Black immigrant students who have contact with regular old school police, also have extremely higher likelihood of immigration detention and deportation. So when we talk about ending the school-to-prison pipeline, we talk about police-free schools, we're also talking about ending the school-to-deportation pipeline as well for our migrant students, which there are, tens of thousands of in LAUSD. So it's really urgent for us to continue pushing LAUSD and other public entities to divest from policing and criminalizing and surveilling our communities and invest in the kind of resources and supports that we and especially our young people really need.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I thought the Black Student Achievement program is such a big win. We see the investment in ESL. We see the investment in communities that are wealthier based on their tax base and what they have to offer the students. And this seems very important. So you want people to come to the school board meeting at 3 p.m. on May 13th down at the school headquarters, 333 South Beaudry.
Absolutely. We want y'all to come join us. Come join the young people. Come hear directly from young people who are leading this movement, leading the fight to push LAUSD to take action. You can also follow us on Instagram at LA_Students Deserve to follow that movement. We're always in deep partnership with our folks in Black Lives Matter Los Angeles at BLM Los Angeles, who are also involved in the Police-Free LAUSD Coalition. And so we're pushing this work, and we'd love for y'all to join us. There will definitely be more announcements on social media and elsewhere soon around how folks can plug in, because it is budget season, right? The city, at the county, and at the school district level. And it's a time when folks are raising their voices about how these public entities should be spending our tax dollars in ways that we need and want them to.
Yeah, and so that's a good advice to follow on socials, because this is a time, I think, where the people over 22 really need to stand with the ones that are younger, and particularly I think about our high school students, because they don't have as many rights. They just don't.
Absolutely. And we talked about anniversaries. May 2nd coming up is the anniversary of the Children's March in 1963, when, young people took the mantle. When their parents could no longer protest, they stood up and were beaten and water hosed and dogged and still protested for liberation and for freedom. And so we're celebrating these or commemorating these anniversaries in the history of this Black liberation movement. So also join us on Thursday at this May Day action with our partners at UTLA and the California Labor Fed. And other folks will be hitting the streets on Thursday, May Day, downtown at 9 a.m. Because we got to keep hitting the streets. We got to keep hitting the streets.
Yeah, it's never one and done. Joseph Williams, remind us again how to follow Students Deserve.
LA_students deserve on Instagram, LA_students DFRV on X, LA Students Deserve on Facebook. I think we got a TikTok too.
I bet you do, whether you know it or not. Joseph Williams, thank you so much for joining me today. And also, you can look for him. He often hosts the Saturday mornings for This Is Not a Drill on KBLA. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Dominique. Always a pleasure to be in the show with you.
And as we approach the 100th birthday of Malcolm X, I'm going to end with his quote because I think it's important in the spirit of where we are. He says, "Power in defense of freedom is greater than power in behalf of tyranny, oppression, because power, real power, comes from our conviction, which produces action, uncompromising action." Okay, I will see you tomorrow. Tap Smiley is here. He's got an incredible show for you. Judge Maybelline will join me in the studio tomorrow, as will Tori Brennan Reese. Like my mama used to say, history is now, and we are making it together. Until tomorrow, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. Former Vice President Kamala Harris is expected to criticize Donald Trump's presidency in a speech in San Francisco on Wednesday. Speaking at Emerge, an organization that promotes Democratic women in office, Harris will target Trump's economic policies and his influence on American institutions. The process of selecting a new pope will begin May 7th. That's when what's called a conclave begins. Members of the College of Cardinals under age 80 are allowed to vote, and the winner must be selected by a 2/3 majority. The House of Representatives is taking a stand against deepfake and revenge pornography. Lawmakers on Monday overwhelmingly approved the Take It Down Act, which provides protections for victims of non-consensual sexual image sharing as Paris performances. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio